Again, my apologies to the online people while I'm setting this thing up and turning it on, trying to make it work. Little tablet wants to keep going off on me.
It's my philosophy of youth ministry. Yeah. Yeah, it's my major for youth pastor. I feel like I should go right. I should change my
Okay. Hopefully it's going to take off. Let's pray. Father, thank you for this time we have together. I ask your blessing on these students as we work through this topic. Help them to take good notes and understand the process. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Well, still trying to get it up there. You got a little note card going for you? Making notes, putting on a sheet of paper or something so you can use it as a reference while you're working these problems. Yeah. We'll try it again. See if that makes it click on. Ah, there we go. Okay. Yeah. Full screen, huh? Look at that. That's what it says. The converse of if P then Q is if Q then P. You go, so who cares? Oh, exercise 1 on page 142. Write in words the contrapositive of the statement, if n is not an even number, then n is not divisible by 2. What's contrapositive? The converse of if P then Q is if Q then P. The inverse of if P then Q is if not P then not Q. The contrapositive of if P then Q is if not Q then not P. Where is that? Page 138 in your textbook is where you can get that information. I've written it a little differently than the textbook writes it because sometimes people look at the box and say, that box didn't make sense to me. So I'm trying to write it in another way that hopefully would make sense to you. About the converse, the inverse. Well, I don't know. Inverse. And the contrapositive. So let's look at problem 1. If n is not an even number, so it starts out if n is not an even number, then what? N is not divisible by 2. Everybody follow what I've written up there? Page 142, question 1. If n is not an even number, here's the if, here's the then, and here's the p. If p, then q. Everybody follow that? Now, they want me to write the contrapositive. The contrapositive. So, what's the contrapositive of if p then q? It's right there in front of you. Tell me what to write.
Not Q, then not P.
If not q, then not p. Okay? Everybody understand? Now, they want me to write it in words. Write it in words. What does Q say?
N is not divisible by 2.
N is not divisible by 2. What would not Q say?
N is divisible by 2.
N is divisible by 2. What's P?
If N is not divisible.
P is N is not an even number. So what's not P?
N is
N is an
an even number.
even number. Everybody follow what's going on? Now, to write it in if-then form, I would say if n is divisible by 2, then n is an even number. And that's the contrapositive in if-then form. Okay? Let's look at number 2. P is you brush your teeth with gleam. Q is what? You have no cavities. Write the converse inverse and the contrapositive of statement of if P then Q. So, what's the converse? Back over here. What's the converse?
If Q is in P.
If P then Q, the converse is?
If Q then P.
Oh, up here. Sorry about that. Converse, not inverse. Converse is what?
If Q then P.
So I come over here, and converse is if Q, then P. What's the inverse?
Not P, then not Q.
That's the contrapositive. What's the inverse? Not if not P, then not Q. If not P, then not Q. What's the contrapositive? If not Q, then not P. Does everybody follow where we're getting our information? Now, let's put this in words. If P then Q would be if P, you brush your teeth with clean, then you have no cavities. You follow that? If you brush your teeth with clean, then you have no cavities. What would the converse say? If what? You have no cavities, then what?
You brush your teeth with.
Then you brush your teeth with clean. What's the inverse? If what? You don't. If you don't what?
Brush your teeth.
Brush your teeth with clean. Then what?
You have cavities.
You have cavities. Everybody follow that one? Then let's do the contrapositive. If what? If not Q. If you have no cavities, not Q would be if you have cavities, then what? Then you not P, then you don't brush your teeth with clean. Everybody follow the process? You have to have that chart that shows the converse of if P then Q, the inverse of if P then Q, and the contrapositive of if P then Q. And then you use that chart to take whatever they give you and translate it into words. Or if they give you something like problem 3 says, let P be defined as in problem 2. Oh, that's over here, isn't it? So here's P as in problem 2. And here's Q as in problem 2. We're working problem 3 here. Translate each statement into symbolic language. You have no cavities only if you brush your teeth with clean. Only if. Do you have on your note card how to translate only if from page 139? There it is, from page 139. No, we don't need that. No, we don't need that. A is sufficient for B. B is necessary for A only if B, and B if A are all equivalent to if A then B. You understand where I'm using A and B instead of P and Q? I'm just switching the letters. You go, why'd you do that to us? Well, because of what problem 3 says. Let's scroll down here to problem 3. You have, let me put it up here a little bit higher. You have no cavities only if you brush your teeth with clean. Isn't that what it said? So, you have no cavities, only if. See this only if phrase right there? So when I see only if, then I put A, only if, B. See what I'm doing? I'm using the pattern from page 138. No, page 139. I'm using the pattern from page 139 to take what they've said and put it in symbolic language. And then I'm using A and B instead of P and Q. And the reason I'm doing that is because problem 3 tells you to use P and Q, and if I use P and Q and talk about P, if I use capital P and Q and talk about small p and Q, it gets confusing. So I'm just changing it to A and B. So I go A only if B. Now, A only if B is equivalent to what? If A, then B. Everybody follow that? So how would I put that in terms of the information from problem 2? A, you have no cavities, is what's the letter for that? Q. And B, you brush with clean, what's the letter for that? P. Everybody follow that? They're telling me to use these letters. So P is equivalent to B, Q is equivalent to A. So for problem 3, I don't use the letters. I've used A and B to figure out what they're saying. But what do I put down for my answer that I'm going to check in the answer book? If Q, then P. Everybody follow that? That's your answer. Everybody follow that process? Number 4. Why did I do one of yours? Oh, because they don't give you enough practice with this. So probably what we ought to do is walk through this stuff in class, and then you go home and put your notes aside and walk through it again and see if you can walk through it, because you're going to have to walk through it when it comes test time. Problem 4. Having no cavities is a sufficient condition for brushing your teeth with clean. Do you follow that? Okay, let's come back up here and look at our chart. Where is the word sufficient used? A is sufficient for B is equivalent to if A, then B. So I put down here A is equivalent, is sufficient for B, and that's equivalent to if A, then B. Everybody follow that? But what was A? Having no cavities. What did they tell me? What letter did they say to use for having no cavities? Q. And what letter did they say to use for brushing your teeth with clean? P. So if A is Q and B is P, then A is Q. Here's your keyed answer right there. if Q, then P. Using symbolic language. If they want you to write it out, you would say, if I have no cavities, then I brush my teeth with clean. You follow the thinking, how you would say it in words? Wouldn't it be the other way around?
If I brush my teeth with clean, then I have no cavities.
Now,
Or does it matter? I don't know.
okay, watch. When you see that word, is a sufficient condition for. Of these 1, 2, 3, 4 choices, 1, 2, 3, 4 choices, which choice uses is a sufficient condition for? So A is sufficient for B is equivalent to if A then B. So that's why I write it that way. If I think about it in my own mind logically, I'll switch it around. And the guy, that's why you want to have these notes with you when you take your test, because the guy who writes the test, one of the choices will be a wrong choice that will pop in our heads. It just happens that way. That's why you have to keep coming back and saying, when I look at the words they use, I have to compare that with this chart to see which phrase we're talking about. Okay, let's jump down here to number 5. You say, that's one of ours. I know. But they don't give you enough practice. So if you just have to do it on your own, you'd be throwing your book across the wall. So I'm going to walk you through it, and then you can practice it on your own as much as you need to practice to get ready for the test that's coming up a week from today. You go, what? Yep, we do 3.4 today. We do 3.6 on Wednesday. We do the practice test on Friday and take a test a week from today over chapter 3. Okay, so let's look at number 5. To have no cavities or having, no, it says to have. Okay, so could I write that? Well, let's just leave it like that. Let's go ahead and leave it like, to have no cavities, it is necessary that you brush your teeth with clean. Now, see that word it? So we go back up here to our phrase, our pattern, and we say, it is necessary for it. B is necessary for A. You follow that? I look where they use the word necessary. So I come down here and go, B is necessary for A. Everybody follow that? Now, the question is, B is necessary for A is translated how? B is necessary for A is equivalent to if A then B. So I come down here and say, so that would be B is necessary for A would be if A then B. But now I have to figure out what's A and what's B. What does it stand for? Is it having no cavities, or is it brushing your teeth with clean? Think about your English. Which one is it? It is necessary that you brush your teeth with clean. So it is brushing your teeth with clean. Everybody follow that? So brushing your teeth with clean is necessary for what? Having no cavities. Everybody follow that step? When you see that word it in one of these problems, put a circle around the word it and figure out which phrase goes with it. And it is necessary to do what? Brush your teeth with clean to have no cavities. You have to take and rearrange the English sentence following your English grammar rules. So now that we know B is brush your teeth with clean and A is having no cavities, what was the letter for B for brushing your teeth with clean? P. Isn't that right? From problem 2? Yeah, problem 2. And Q is having no cavities. So what do we put down here? A is Q. A is Q. Maybe I have it written down here. Maybe I don't. Nope, I don't. So A is Q and B is P. So what do we put for our answer? If Q, then P. Which is, if you have no cavities, then you brush your teeth with clean. And when you compare that with this sentence here, to have no cavities, it is necessary that you brush your teeth with clean. The only way you get to that answer is if you came back up here and said, I'm using the B is necessary for A part of the formula. And B is necessary for A is equivalent to, notice how A comes first, if A, then B. So it does a switch on you. So you have to keep coming back and looking at that. Okay? Are we ready to move on to problem 7? I know, I'm doing another one of yours. Number 7 says, to be a math major, it is necessary to take calculus. So here's that word it again. It is necessary. So that would be B. Go back to your chart. B is necessary for A. Everyone follow that? I'm getting that from the chart. I'm looking at the chart saying, where's the necessary? That's the second one here. B is necessary for A. So I come down here and go, just put B is necessary for A. It is necessary for something. Now, here's the question. What is B? It is necessary to take calculus. So taking calculus is it. So taking calculus is B. Everybody follow that? If taking calculus is B, then what's A? Being a math major. Okay? Now we have to put it in if-then form. And what's the if-then form for B is necessary for A? Back to the chart. B is necessary for A is equivalent to if A, then B. So you see how you're switching them here? Necessary means that if A, then B. So I come down here and go, then that means B is necessary for A is if A, then B. And what is A? Being a math major. So if you are a math major, then you take calculus. Because B is taking calculus. Now, how do I put that? Oh, they want it in words. They don't want it in symbolic language. So there's the answer. If you are a math major, then you take calculus. Now, do you follow how we got at this answer? we took the original statement, circled the it, went to the chart, looked at the second sentence, necessary for, and took B and A, came down here and said B is necessary for A, and that translates to if A then B. Then we figure out which information goes with B and which information goes with A. And it is brushing your teeth with clean, which is B, so that goes over here. No, that's 5. Let's move down here. 7. There we go. So B is taking calculus, and A is being a math major. So if you're a math major, A, then you're taking calculus B. You got it? Is your head hurting? Yep, that's just part of the process. This is not small L logic like we walk around using every day in our lives. This is capital L logic. T-I-S. This is stupid. Okay, let's do another one now that we got that out of our system. Number 8. A good argument is necessary to convince Eve. So here's a good argument. Here's is necessary to convince Eve. I go back up to my chart. Which sentence is necessary? The second one. You see that? B is necessary for A. So I come down here to number 8 and I put down B is necessary for A. And how do I translate that from to if then? Go back and look at the chart. B is necessary for A is equivalent to if A then B. So I come down here and put so I put if A then B. So what's A? A is convincing who? Eve. So A is convincing Eve. So if you convince Eve, A, then B, you have a good argument. And there's your answer that they'll be looking for in the answer book. Questions? You see how this works? See how you have to keep those notes in front of you looking at them? Well, let's do number 12. What does number 12 say? A sufficient condition for joining a women's club. A sufficient condition for joining a women's club is what? Being a woman. You see where I rearranged the sentence? You go, why'd you do that? Because my chart shows A is sufficient for B. Do you follow that? A is sufficient for B. So I come down here to number 12 and say A is sufficient for B. And that's equivalent to if A, then B. And what is sufficient for what? A is being a woman, right? And B is joining a woman's club. Isn't it? Isn't that the way it was written? A sufficient condition for joining a woman's club is being a woman. And since I want to follow the chart, I rearrange the sentence so it'll reflect the way I'm working my chart. And if A is sufficient for B is equivalent to if A then B, then I come down here. If you are a woman, that's this one, then you can join a woman's club. Now, if I check the answer book and they've worded it a little differently, I've still got the information in the right place. So don't check it wrong if your wording doesn't match the book exactly. It's just a matter of saying, I know what I'm doing, and I just said it a little differently than they did. Okay, number 14. All dogs are canines. So how do I put that in if-then form? If it's a dog, then it's a canine. You see that? When I say all dogs are canines, that translates into if it's a dog, then it's a canine. You go, I need to put that in my notes. That if I see a phrase that says all A is B, then I know that's equivalent to if A, then B. Everybody follow that? And you just need this stuff in your notes so you can say, if I think about it, I'll overthink it and answer it with small L logic and miss it. If I follow the chart and just do what the chart says, I'll get the correct answer, even if I don't like it. And then don't be surprised on the test next Monday if you get the correct answer by doing all this work. Then you look at the choices and you go, I just have to mark this other one because it feels so right. Go ahead and mark it. Then when I check it wrong, you can correct it when I give your test back. And this is part of what makes this chapter painful for people, is it shows the flaw in just operating on how I feel about it. Number 16. What? Yeah, because they just want me to write it in if-then form. Number 16. Now, for number 16, look what they've said. In problem 16 to 23, H equals honk. And what else does it say? And U equals, what does U equal? You love ultimate. So number 16 says, and I'm supposed to write it in symbolic, right? In symbolic. See how I have to put all this information down on my paper so I keep it in front of me, in front of my eyes and my head while I'm working through it? Now 16 says, honk if you love ultimate. So what it says is, if you love ultimate, comma, what? Honk. Isn't that what it says? Say, well, they didn't write it that way. I know. But if I'm thinking of my if-then format up there, if then, I need to put things in if then form so I can work it. So if you love ultimate, comma, honk. So what would that be? If you love ultimate, then, because I want to bring it to the if then form, then you honk. So which one is you love ultimate? And if then would just be, if we were doing P and Q, it would be if P, then Q, wouldn't it? Or if A, then B, whatever letters you're using. But now, what letters am I supposed to use? U for loving ultimate and H for honking. So my answer is, if you, symbolically, if you, then H. Everybody see that? They want me to write it in symbolic form. Well, let's do another one. 18. Honk only if you love ultimate. See how I'm breaking this up? Now I go back to my chart that I have up here. Whoa, where is it? There it is. Which 1, 2, 3, or 4? Which one is only if? 3. So A only if B is equivalent to if A then B. Maybe let's just do it a piece at a time. So A only if B. So I come down here to this problem and I put A only if B. And that's equivalent to what? If A, then B. Everybody follow that? So what is A? A is honk. And what is B? B is you love ultimate. So what do I write for my answer? Using H and U. H, honk. If you honk, then. Now see, here's how it would translate in words. If you honk, then you love ultimate. So it depends on how they structure the sentence as to whether it's if you, then H, or if H, then you. And all you're learning to do here is follow these rules of logic to translate something from English to logical symbolic language. That's all you're learning to do. And in grad school, when I took a class on logic, there were all these people in the room that were working on their master's degrees that had never studied this like you're studying it now. And they just went crazy. Because it was brand new information to them. So you go, so why aren't we doing this stuff? Because someday, some of you will go to graduate school, and somewhere in your program of study, you will encounter logic again, whether it's in a philosophy class or in a class on logic or whatever, and you'll say, I don't remember it all, but I've seen it before, and I know how to make the adjustment in my head to say, I'm not trying to think this through on my own, I'm trying to translate from English to capital L logic and use capital L logic symbols. Okay, number 19. You go, why are you doing one of ours? Because it's another kind of question that I don't think you would figure out on your own. So we'll just do it in class here, and then you can put it on your paper and then look at it again later. 19 says, a necessary condition for liking ultimate is to honk. Is that what it said? Yeah, that's why I put a T there. A necessary condition for liking. Now see, there's that phrase, a necessary condition. Everybody follow that? So I go back up here to my chart. And which sentence is necessary? The second one. And what's it say? B is necessary for A. So I come down here to number 19, and I go, B is necessary for A. See how I'm just using my chart to write the stuff down and circle it? Then, what is necessary for what? Necessary for loving ultimate. Everybody see that? So loving ultimate is after the for. And what goes before is? A necessary condition for loving ultimate is what? Honking. So honk goes over here. Honking is a necessary condition for loving ultimate. You follow that? You see how I rearranged the sentence? I took the English sentence and I rearranged it to make it fit the capital L logic format. And now I go back to my chart. And say B is necessary for A is equivalent to if A then B. So I come back down here to 19. So B is necessary for A is equivalent to if A then B. So in my if then phrase, A comes first and then B because of the chart. So if that's the case, if loving ultimate is A and honking is B, then my correct answer is if you love ultimate, then you honk. And that's the symbolic form. Number 20. A sufficient condition for loving ultimate is to honk. Back up to the chart. Which sentence is A is sufficient for B? Number 1. So I come down here to problem 20 and I put A is sufficient for B. And that translates into if A then B, doesn't it? Remember from the other side of the chart? So now I have to decide what goes where. Where does honking go? A sufficient condition for loving ultimate. There it is, for loving ultimate. What is a sufficient condition for loving ultimate? Honking is a sufficient condition for loving ultimate. So if A is sufficient for B is translated if A then B, then it would be if H then U. Okay? And that says if you honk then you love ultimate. And that's the difference between a necessary condition. See, look at number 19. 19, the correct answer is if U then H, and 20 it's if H then U. Why are they revert? Why are they different? Because 19 was a necessary condition and 20 is a sufficient condition. And those words have different capital L logical meanings. Well, that was fun, wasn't it? Number 22. Oh, we've done a sufficient, so we'll skip that one. Number 23 is another one of those it things. It is sufficient that you honk. To love ultimate, it is sufficient that you honk. Now, what's it referring to? Honking is it. Everybody see that? So honking is sufficient for loving ultimate. Oh, it goes on and says, and it is necessary that you honk. So that would be honking is necessary for loving ultimate. So guess what happens? Well, let's look over here. Sufficient says if H then U. Necessary says if U then H. And says put them both together, and guess what the answer is? U, arrow both directions, H, which is read, if and only if you love ultimate, then you honk. In other words, this little phrase right here is read if and only if. And if you remember on Friday, we did that if and only if stuff. And you'll need that down in your notes as well. Okay, number 24. Now you see why I work 23? Because I just think you try to figure these out on your own, it just drives you nuts. And I might as well help you see it today rather than have you come back on Wednesday and be tearing your hair out saying, this just doesn't make any sense. Because you almost have to look at it 2 or 3 or 4 times for it start to make sense to you. And what you're doing is acquiring the ability to think with capital L logic. Number 24. Write in symbolic symbols the converse, the inverse, and the contrapositive of honk if you love ultimate. So didn't they just say if you love ultimate then honk? Isn't that what they just said? So that would be if you, then H. And they want the what? They want the converse. Okay, you got your chart in front of you? What's the converse of if you, then H? If H, then U. Agreed? Got it? And they want you to write it in symbolic form. So the first thing I did was take this phrase, put it in if-then form, then put it in symbolic form, and now I'm writing the converse of that. What's the inverse of that? Look back at your chart. You don't have your chart handy there? It's on page 138. What's it say? If not what? If not H, then not U. That's the inverse. Now, what's the contrapositive? If not U, then not H. Everybody follow that? The converse, the inverse, and the contrapositive.
Can the inverse be the last one since you the H's? Like
Inverse. Okay, let's see. In the chart it says if P then Q, right? Now what's the converse of if P then Q? If Q then P. What's the inverse of if P then Q? Of this.
If P then not P then not Q.
If not P, then not Q.
So one different.
So the inverse leaves the letters in the same order, just negates them. The contrapositive does what?
Switches the letter.
Switches them. You follow that?
Yeah, so I think the other one on the left is opposite.
Which one?
The inverse.
Your intro and contra positive are backwards.
On the H and the U one.
Oh. What did I do? Yeah. Thank you. I know what I did. You know what I did? I was looking at this one when I wrote it instead of up here at this one. Man. Thank you. So inverse is if not you, then not H. And then contrapositive is if not H, then not U. That's what you were telling me, right? I had my information down wrong. Thank you. All because when I was doing this last night, thinking that I would make this go a little better today, so it'd already be written out, and then I made a mistake writing it out. Thank you for pointing that out. Number 25. Oh, I think we've done an only if, so let's move down here to, well, 25. Honk only if you love ultimate. So P only if Q. So what would that be? Back to the chart. Only if. Where'd it go? Wow, way on up here. Only if A, sentence 3, A only if B is equivalent to if A then B. So back down to number 25. So P or A only if B is equivalent to if A then B, and A is honk and B is you love ultimate. So honk, if you honk then you love ultimate. The converse would be what? If you love ultimate then you honk. The inverse would be back up here, keep your eyes on the prize. If you don't honk, then you don't love ultimate. And the contrapositive would be what? If you don't love ultimate, then you don't honk. Everybody follow that? Good. I didn't ask for that. Maybe I didn't realize I asked for it. 26. Okay, 26 says P is passing the course, S is studying daily. So what's 26 say? Studying daily is necessary for passing the course. So B is necessary for A, translates into what? If A, then B. Remember from your chart? And what is A? A is passing the course. What is B? Studying daily. So passing the course, A. If you pass the course, then you study daily. And then putting that in symbolic language, passing the course is P. So the answer is if P, then S. Number 28. I will pass the course if and only if. Now that's that A, if and only if B. So what happens? A is passing the course. B is studying daily. And what is passing the course? P. So I come down here and put if P, if and only if S. Number 32. In problems 31 to 35, write the converse of each statement. And then state whether the converse is always true or not always true. Number 32. If it rains, then there are clouds in the sky. Everybody see how I put this? I've got my if. If it rains, then there are clouds in the sky. Now, that would be if P, then Q. Everybody agree? So what's the converse of if P, then Q? If Q, then P. So here's P, it rains. Here's Q, there are clouds in the sky. So how would I write this in words? Q, if there are clouds in the sky, then what? It is raining. Everybody follow how I got this construction? I took the original sentence, and they want me to write the converse of it. So the original sentence said, if it's raining, then there are clouds in the sky. Because doesn't rain come from clouds? So the converse says, if there are clouds in the sky, then it's raining. Is that always true? I mean, when it's raining, I know there's clouds in the sky, but can there be clouds in the sky without it raining? So that's not always true. That's what they want you to do. After you finish doing this, think about the sentence and say, is that always true? You say, no, that's not always true. In fact, when you read the textbook pages about converse, inverse, and contrapositive, the converse isn't always true, the inverse isn't always true, but the contrapositive will always have the same truth value as the if-then phrase. But people use converses and contrapositives all the time in arguing, and it's important for you to learn to see the flaw in that. Number 34, if M is elected to office, then, here's my if then what's it say? Then all of our problems are over. So it's if P then Q. The converse is what? If Q then P. So what's Q? All of our problems. What's P? M elected to office. So if all of our problems are over, then what? M is elected to office. Is that always true or not always true? Could our problems be over whether M was elected to office or not? So that's not always true either. Number 36. Aren't you glad to see that? Stop at 39. Number 36. If it's an equilateral triangle, then the three angles, what does it say? The three angles are equal. So here's if P then Q. P is equilateral triangle. Q is the angles are equal. The converse would be if Q then P, which says if the angles are equal, then it's an equilateral triangle. Is that always true? If the three angles of a triangle are equal, you've had geometry? Good. You say if the three angles of a triangle are equal, it's an equilateral triangle. So that would be always true. And stop when you get to 39. And that's all we have to do. That's why I didn't have you read the whole section there, because you're not going to have any questions on the test about tautologies and contradictions. There's only so much you can absorb in one time, and if I try to jam too much stuff in your head, then what happens is we just seem to give up on any of it. So we try to keep it to a manageable bit. We want your head to hurt, but not to explode. If you have any questions, stick around after class. I'll be here till chapel starts. One more topic on Wednesday, chapter review on Friday, and what did I say? And a test next Monday. A test a week from today. Thank you.